coming up.
Since 2016, there have been 3,103 grants and contributions awarded over $100,000. How many of these have been reviewed by the Treasury Board?
This is up to me.
Well, it's the Treasury Board President who is ultimately responsible. And as I'm sure you're aware, she's taken on another ministry. And so it's just very concerning to me that she's being spread too thin. She's not able to give this audit her full attention, the oversight of taxpayer dollars, her full attention. We kind of have a part-time president of the Treasury Board right now, given that she's managing these two files.
An internal audit of grants and contributions programs revealed that the Environment Department was not monitoring 10% of the projects and not reviewing a further 27%. Why weren't these projects being monitored?
This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
Meeting number 144, the House of Commons Standing Committee on Government Operations and Estimates, widely known as the Mighty OGGO, also widely known as truly the only committee that matters. So we welcome back Ms. Boudreau from Comptroller General's Office.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for this opportunity to speak with the committee on the subject of federal grants and contributions process. With me today are Monia Alaye, Assistant Controller General for Financial Management Sector, and Nicole Thomas, Executive Director of Costs, Charging and Transfer of Payments. As Controller General, I'm responsible for providing functional direction and assurance on financial management, internal audit, investment planning, procurement, project management, and the management of real property, material, and transfer payments across the federal government. Mr. Chair, I'd be pleased to answer any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll start with Mrs. Kusi for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today. Out of the hundreds of millions spent in the Environment Department's grants and contributions program, how much has Treasury Board approved, please?
So every time that there is a new program, the department must come to Treasury Board for review and approval. So every time it's a new program, terms and conditions, they have to come. So I would say it would depend which calendar fiscal year you're referring to. But again, that's the principle, and that's the process that we are applying every time, not only for ECCC, but for all organizations across the Government of Canada.
Okay, so Treasury Board would have approved the funds for this program on a fiscal year-by-year basis. Is that correct?
It depends. If it is funding for ongoing program, it will have been approved once at Treasury Board. But after that, as you know, because this committee is quite involved with the estimates, every time they will have to come and present their new funding via an estimate.
Has your department ever reviewed the program to ensure that funds were going to recipients that had clear plans to improve environmental protections?
So this responsibility, as I stated in my opening remarks, belong to the DPLI heads. So the DPLI heads will have the opportunity to request internal audit to look into that, and that's exactly what ECCC requested the Deputy Minister, because he had some concerns. So he wanted to have a third-party review or a independent assessment from his internal audit function.
The report states that the top ADM committee evaluates proposals deemed to be medium to high risk that exceed $100,000. However, 94% of the reviewed files in this audit did not have the right documentation to support the risk rating. Are you concerned at all about departments not doing their due diligence to ensure that funds are spent appropriately?
I am always concerned by the lack of documentation. So that's why under my group, we have what we call a center of expertise that Nicole leads. And we always remind departments that every time that there is a money going out the door, as per the Financial Administration Act, Section 32, 33, and 34, that the due diligence should be done at all levels.
Since 2016, there have been 3,103 grants and contributions awarded over $100,000. How many of these have been reviewed by the Treasury Board?
Is your question specific to ECCC?
Yes, because it would be the 3,103 grants and contributions awarded over 100K within the program.
So we do not review those programs. Like I was saying, department heads are responsible for their own programs, and if they feel that there is a concern or they want to make sure that everything is effective, they will be asking the internal audit function to look into this according to the risk of the grant or of the contribution or the program itself.
The problems in the ECCC grants and contributions have been ongoing since 2016 when the minister moved from small to large-scale program delivery. The decentralized structure and limited resources were strained, which has led to potential legal and reputational damage. Has the Treasury Board done any follow-up to ensure the funds provided to this program were allocated correctly?
We have not done any specific audit regarding what you just mentioned. Again, it will be at the deputy minister level to look at those instances.
Are you concerned about the lack of accountability and oversight in this program?
So we are all concerned. So that's why an audit was requested by the deputy minister to look into that. And as well, maybe I should have mentioned my role in terms of the risk-based audit plan that all departments put together every year. Those audit plans are shared with my office for review and to make sure that we are comfortable with the risk identified and also the way forward in terms of auditing and evaluating.
Do you believe that the Environment Department has ever wasted taxpayers' money?
That's not a question that I can answer.
Okay. Do you believe the Environment Department always delivered value for money to taxpayers?
So the policy on transfer payment is clear in terms of value for money. And like I said, I will expect all deputy ministers to play their role in terms of ensuring that they are following the policy as well as the directive and also the guideline.
In your opinion, do you believe all departments should be auditing all grants and contributions?
It would depend. It would depend which organization. It would depend the value of grants and contributions. It will depend also about other risks that departments may have. And obviously, we cannot audit everything. So again, it will be a question of considering all the potential risk, the risk mitigation strategies that departments have into place, and what's left that we feel that should be looked at.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Mrs. Kusi. Mr. Jouari.
Is there a threshold? I mean, when I look at the 2022-23 fiscal grants and contribution breakdown by in that department, there were about 9 items, and they were varied from $1.3 million to $318 million. $1.3 million for public affairs and communication branch, and $318 million for Canada Wildlife Services, as well as about $96 million for Indigenous recipients. So when we see this range, is there a threshold that TBS sets as a level? Because in your response, Madam Boudoir, you were saying, well, it depends. It depends on the amount. It depends on the risk. And I'm trying to get a better understanding of what that depends mean.
Mm-hmm. So my answer about it depends on the risk was related to the internal audit function.
Okay.
If we go back to the transfer payments, if there is a new set of terms and conditions, a new program, that has to come to Treasury Board, regardless of the amount involved. that has to come to authorize. Once it is authorized, there are limits that have been that are imposed. Those limits for each department, it's included in what we call the matrix of delegation of authorities. And those delegation of authorities are accessible on the department's website, and you can see what are the level for each of the program's terms and conditions.
So following the same process, standard process, regardless whether the grant is $100,000 or the grant is $10 million, the process is the same. It's just a level of authorization varies. For example, in the case of Public Affairs and Communication Branch, about the allocated amount was $1.3 million. Who would be making decisions? Would it be at the director level who will making decisions on approval of these grants and contributions? Who would be making that decision?
You're talking about the approval of the amount, or once it is allocated to recipients?
Well, it is the amount that's allocated to the program is $1.3 million. That's the way I understand. So that's already agreed between TBS and the structure of the program. But the projects that fall under the $1.3 million or fall under the Public Affairs and Communication Branch, is there an amount that will necessitates, let's say, the minister gets involved, or is it an amount that says below this threshold, the directors can approve the grant?
I would say that it is specific program by program and department by department. So for this specific question, we will need to go back and come back to the committee within 21 days.
Mrs. Kusi.
Would you say that the Treasury Board President has been able to give this audit her full attention?
So I am responsible for the internal audit function within the Government of Canada.
But the Treasury Board President herself, would you say she's been available and present to give this audit her full attention?
So usually those internal audit will be the responsibility of the Deputy Minister.
But certainly the Deputy Minister interacts with the President of the Treasury Board regarding these important issues, such as the spending of taxpayer dollars. Would you say that the Treasury Board President has been less available? Less access? Have you had less access to her lately?
No, I would not say she was less available for that kind of challenges or that kind of reports. I am responsible again for the internal audit function. This is up to me.
Well, it's the Treasury Board President who is ultimately responsible. And as I'm sure you're aware, she's taken on another ministry. And so it's just very concerning to me that she's being spread too thin. She's not able to give this audit her full attention, the oversight of taxpayer dollars, her full attention. We kind of have a part-time president of the Treasury Board right now, given that she's managing these two files. I certainly was shadow minister for transport during the pandemic, and I can tell you that this is a very taxing file when you're overseeing all of the airlines, the train travel, especially now the shortcomings that we've seen with our critical supply chains. And so I'm very concerned that this evidence we are receiving through this report indicates that we have a minister, a president of the Treasury Board, who is not able to give her entire attention to the oversight of taxpayer dollars. What would you say to that, please?
I am not concerned. I meet with the president every week because, as you mentioned, she's the president of the Treasury Board. They meet every Thursday morning, and before every meeting, we have a briefing with her, and we have her full attention, and we have great discussions about the files that will be presented on a Thursday morning.
But it would be impossible to have her full attention because she's giving half of her attention currently to the transport file. Now, I know in 2019, the Treasury Board issued the further guidelines, and yet we're still getting these lapses we're seeing here through the Triple C audit. A couple of months ago, we received feedback that Global Affairs Canada, through their audit, was also having some problem with the oversight of the distribution of funds. And so I really have to take it again back to the president of the Treasury Board. And so I'm just asking if you believe she's giving her full attention to the oversight of these grants and contributions, if she's been as accessible to you. And I just believe that would be very difficult for her to achieve this, her to do this, given that, frankly, how thin she's being spread over departments. And as I said, we really seem to have a part-time president right now, given this additional duties that she's been given. So given that we have these lapses through ECC, Global Affairs Canada, despite your issuing of the guidelines in 2019, I'll ask you one more time. Do you really believe that Canadians are getting value for money, that taxpayers are getting value for money?
From my perspective, I have access to the president when I need to, and she is extremely accessible for all the files that I am in charge of.
Right. Again, it's unfortunate because the results that we are seeing through, thank goodness, these audits are indicating that the oversight simply is not there at this time. As I mentioned, she was the president of the Treasury Board, now taken on the Ministry of Transport, which is a very intense file. And then, of course, given the difficult situation of the Prime Minister and the Liberal Party at this time, I'm concerned her efforts are even further diluted by the possibility of her posing a leadership campaign as well. So, I mean, this is really a president of a Treasury Board who is supposed to have oversight of all the funds of our nation, whose energy is divided, not one way. Running one department, I imagine, would be completely consuming, but is also responsible for the Department of Transport at the same time as possibly posing a leadership bid. It's quite concerning, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Given that this is a mandate that's required for review, is it not prudent then to do them and to provide recommendations to improve upon the issues? I mean, this is not a static issue. This is an ongoing relationship that's required in order to improve the operations of government. Is that not true?
So thank you for the question. Indeed. So I always welcome internal audit reports. There is always a lot to be learned and also a lot to share with other departments. So the departments will have seen the report from ECCC, and I'm sure they're going to look at that and compare it within their own organization if they need to do improvement. So it's more, in fact, than only ECCC. It is across the board. And again, to come back to audits, the minister herself announced in March of this year that Treasury Board, TBS, will be doing a horizontal audit on procurement. So this is my team doing a horizontal audit on procurement, again, to look at processes that we have in place, the governance that we have, internal controls, and we'll be able to communicate the result of that audit in the new calendar year.
An internal audit of grants and contributions programs revealed that the Environment Department was not monitoring 10% of the projects and not reviewing a further 27%. Why weren't these projects being monitored?
That will be based on the risk, I would say, of those programs. We cannot monitor all programs as we cannot audit every element. So I would say that it is a question probably for the department to provide more information about why those specific elements were not entirely looked at. The entire grants and contributions funding.
Personally, I find it quite unacceptable that here you have an environment minister not monitoring how many emissions are being reduced with taxpayers' dollars. And you really don't have a reason for it. So it's ultimately up to the minister to send that signal back to you guys to check for that?
So it is up to the deputy minister to make sure that they have the right controls into place and making sure that their programs are effective, and also to make sure that they have fulfill their obligation in terms of terms and conditions of the contribution funding
Thank you.
or the grant.
Can you provide a list of these projects to the committee that were not being reviewed and were not monitored?
We'll follow up with the department and provide that
You can
information
provide
to the
that.
committee.
Thank you. The government launched an $8 billion taxpayer-funded program called the Net Zero Accelerator. The government claimed they could reduce emissions by giving away $8 billion to mega corporations through this program. According to the Environment Commissioner, and I quote, "A project of more than $50 million also requires Treasury Board approval, concurrence letters from ministers of other concerned departments, and cabinet approval." The Commissioner also states that the Net Zero Accelerator projects, and I quote, "can be fast-tracked with a letter to the Prime Minister," end quote. How many Net Zero Accelerator projects were fast-tracked with a letter to the Prime Minister?
That I don't have the information for you. We can go back to the department. But my understanding is the commissioner will be appearing just after us, so that could be a question for him.
So in that list of people, it does go to the Treasury Board, and do you have any recollection of any letters, anything like that would never go past your desk as far as the letter?
No, I don't have any recollection.
Okay, thank you. Are you aware of any other emission reduction projects that can be fast-tracked with a letter to the Prime Minister?
I'm not aware, no.
Treasury Board is required to approve Net Zero Accelerator projects that receive more than $50 million. How many emissions have been reduced to date from the approved projects?
This will, a good reference point will be to go in the departmental plan and departmental result report, where the information will be provided for each of those programs.
But you do an audit on these programs. The whole idea of releasing the funds is to get outcomes. And the Treasury Board is watching over that. And that's what you gave before for testimony. So why don't you know the answer to that?
I'm not responsible for the outcomes for all those departments. Deputy heads that are administering those programs for those departments will be in a better position to provide the answers to your questions.
So the Deputy Minister of Environment would know about the Net Zero Accelerator Fund.
Yeah, this is a program that is part of his department. That's correct.
It's interesting because he said he didn't know anything about it. So I guess we'll have to get him back here in front of committee. Is the Environment Department fully monitoring the results of their grants and contribution spending?
So they're doing audits, like I said, and I would like also to add that as per the Financial Administration Act, every programs need to be greater than $5 million, need to be evaluated every 5 years. So that is a requirement in the law. So every department need to do that.
So I'll ask the question again, just so we're clear. Is the Environment Department fully monitoring the results of their grants and contribution spending? Is it law then?
Like I said, every programs above $5 million, as per the Financial Administration Act, need to be reviewed every 5 years. And all those evaluations will be accessible on the department's website.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
The fear is, if there's programs that have been there for several years, is there less oversight on those? That's my question.
It's not less oversight. So the risk-based audit plan is a 3-year audit plan that needs to be refreshed every year. Those plans comes to my group and we look at them to make sure that at the end of the day we have a good audit coverage on all programs. And again, if there is some challenges, or if a deputy minister believes that he would like to have more information about a particular program, the deputy minister, as his role, can decide to ask for a specific audit from his internal audit shop.